Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Outright Podcast. If you're new here, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. So, also comment down below what guests you want to see on the show. We have a few in mind for upcoming shows, but, well, we would also like to hear from you guys, the listeners and the viewers. And just keep in mind that we can't have people like Donald Trump or Tucker Carlson on because, we're a small podcast with 40 subscribers on YouTube. It's just nothing big. So, like, any of your niche Instagram friends, please just go ahead and type that down in the comments and we'll check it out. First and foremost, I'd like to wish you guys a very happy New Year and hope you had a blessed Christmas. And, with the turn of the year rapidly approaching, so is the 2024 election cycle. And in this upcoming year, we Americans have the opportunity to, might I say, make America great again by electing a new president and winning over numerous Democratic seats in the Senate and House of Representatives. Today, we will be talking about the likely and not so likely paths that the presidential election will go, or potentially will go, and how each path would likely result. And don't worry, we're going to be talking about the Senate seats and the House seats in future episodes. So for that reason, go ahead and like, comment, like down below and hit the subscribe button. So the first possibility that almost everybody sees is Trump versus Biden. In almost every poll, Donald Trump is up 40, 50, and even 60% for the Republican primary. So we're going to, first and foremost, go over the most likely possibility, as of now, for the 2024 general election. And this, of course, as I said before, is Trump and the incumbent President Biden. As of now, there are only 3 Democratic presidential candidates, and they are Joe Biden, U.S. Representative from Minnesota, Dean Phillips, never heard of the guy, actually, and some author from California. And apparently she ran in 2020 for the Democrat presidential bid. Marianne Williamson, also never heard of her. And as of now, it's almost guaranteed that Joe Biden will win the nomination just because of who he's running up against. So in this situation, we will assume that Joseph Biden won the Democratic nominee. How would you guys see a Trump versus Biden election turning out?
I guess I'll go first. So right now, Trump is actually up on Biden by quite a bit. The reason why I think is because a lot of the media buzz around Trump has kind of calmed down a little bit. And so there's not as much ammunition to throw at Trump, and there's a lot more ammunition to throw at Biden because of how crappy the economy is right now and just how awful everything is going down the toilet basically at this point because of Biden's terrible policies. And so I think that's the main reason why. It's because Trump is out of the spotlight, and so everyone is focusing their ire, their hatred on Biden, and so that pushes Trump up in the polls, I think. I think that's what has caused all this.
Absolutely.
So I think you really have to, as always, you have to wait and see how the rest of this year and then, of course, the 10 months of 2024 play out. But like John said, right now, Donald Trump is leading in all the swing states. And because, Biden, the economy is still flagging. Interest rates are still hiked up by the Fed to combat inflation. You have a stalemate war in Ukraine, that could erupt into a larger conflict. You have war in the Middle East that could erupt into a larger conflict. So the Americans see this and they're concerned, rightly so. And then, of course, you have Joe Biden himself, who is a little bit of a bumbling man, shall we say. Nobody can really deny this. Right? There's gaffes, and then there's Joe Biden. George Bush had gaffes. We all remember the "you fooled me once, shame on me. You fooled me twice. You can't fool me again." So one Joe Biden gaffe, America can be explained in one word.
I was going to foot him.
That might be a gaffe, but it's again and again. So there's clearly something going on here. And Americans are seeing this, and they're turned off by Joe Biden.
All right, guys. So as of now, I think the 2024 election will go in Trump's favor. But, there still is a lot of time. Trump is doing really well in all the swing states. So, we'll just have to see.
That's valid. But yeah, in a recent CNN poll, Trump has led Biden in Michigan and Georgia as broad majorities hold negative views on the current president. I mean, in Georgia, he's up by 5%. In Michigan, he's up by 10%, which is huge, seeing that he lost both of those states in 2020. He leads Biden in all 7 swing states. And on a recent Wall Street Journal national poll, Trump is up 4%, while DeSantis would be in a stalemate with Biden if the election happened today. So who said Trump wasn't electable? Even though Haley on paper is electable, conservatives need to avoid her like the plague, as she is another warmonger who wants to go back to 2012 neoconservative politics and conserve the economy. Anyways, DeSantis and Biden both at a stalemate, 45%. In a generic ballot, Republicans are up 46% to the Democrats' 41%, with Trump performing over the top of the general election, of the generic ballot. On to the next scenario. This is less likely on a broader scale, but I do think it is one of the most likely possibilities, hence we're talking about it so early on this list. The elephant in the room, or should I say the donkey in the room, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He was initially planning on running under the Democratic Party, but recently dropped out, causing a bunch of new issues. I was fine with the original idea of him running under the Democratic Party, as it wouldn't cause too many issues for the presidential election, but would have likely been primaried out because he wouldn't have had enough support for the nomination. The problems all started when he declared himself as an independent candidate for the presidency. My good friend Monsieur Z made a very good video about this shortly after Kennedy's independent presidential bid. That I'm going to go ahead and link in the description. Let's take a look at some of his concerns, and for YouTube, I have permission from him to use this. Let's give it a look.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was making waves early on in his campaign, running as a Democratic candidate who appeared to challenge a number of the Democratic establishment's major positions, from imposing vaccine mandates to challenging foreign aid and intervention, to even once suggesting he'd support pro-life policy before backtracking later down the line. This has led RFK Jr. to gain some significant acclaim from libertarians and Republicans as a, quote, moderate Democrat or reasonable Democrat. While this was largely harmless support during his Democratic campaigning, given what many considered his low likelihood of unseating Joe Biden for the nomination, having left the Democratic Party to pursue an independent ticket, an independent RFK Jr. campaign could seriously rock the boat for not just Democrats but Republicans as well. Polls have shown that Kennedy is viewed far more favorably by Republicans than Democrats, and as he now runs on an independent ballot, has sought to further his support among conservatives. Realistically, if Kennedy were to run, pulling some 10 to 15% of the vote, he could steal enough Republican votes to cost the Republicans victories in Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Maine, Arizona, Nevada, and possibly even Ohio, Iowa, Louisiana, Florida, and Texas, handing these states over to the Democratic candidate.
So on that note, how do you guys see RFK Jr. impacting the 2024 election? Keep in mind, in some of the swing states, he's polling anywhere from 7 to 12%, depending on the state and poll. So how do you guys think that will impact the 2024 election in polling votes from Trump versus Biden?
So I think, again, with this election, you'll have to wait and see. Like Zach said, if RFK Jr. is polling that high in some of the swing states, he may be able to even pull in a little bit more funding and step up his ad campaign and even pull in more support. And I don't think he's going to come close to rivaling Trump or Biden, who are the likely nominees for the major parties. But, I mean, a showing of 11% or even any double digits in a state for a third-party candidate is the most we've had in a long time. Now, I disagree with the video. I still think RFK Jr. is going to pull more from Democrats than Republicans. RFK Jr. is still mostly a Democrat. He's pro-choice. He's pro-gay. Oh well, if I don't care, I'm gonna say it. He's pro-gay. As far as I know, he's anti-gun. So sure, he may have some of the newer Republican talking points, especially on COVID, but COVID's gone, and I think conservatives are going to understand that he doesn't support the cultural values that many conservatives are fighting for, namely the LGBTQism that is permeating our country. And primarily, I think Trump has a solid base, much more of a solid base than Joe Biden, because that's Trump's whole game. He was a reality TV show star. The Trump voters love Trump, and they're going to vote for Trump unless, Jesus himself came along. But Joe Biden is not a very charismatic guy. There's no enthusiasm for Joe Biden. So I think, especially as we progress along, the RFK campaign and the Trump campaign are probably going to capitalize on Joe Biden's confusion. And I think that's going to pull a lot of Democratic voters away from him.
I agree with what Travis just said. I also think RFK Jr., in the event that he gets quite a bit of support, not only is it going to pull voters from Biden, but it's also probably going to increase the no-show rate, because people are like, I'll just hope that RFK Jr. wins or something like that. So also, I think to a large degree, Biden is so unpopular right now that I think the American people will take basically anyone other than Biden, and that goes for both people who are Republicans or Democrats. I mean, think about it. You don't see anyone out there enthusiastically supporting Biden, but I digress. I think that RFK Jr. will pull more from Biden. I think the enthusiasm among Republicans for RFK Jr. is very short-lived. Once more conservative people realize, this guy doesn't seem terrible, but he's not someone I agree with on everything, they're gonna go back to supporting Trump, I think. But that's my personal opinion.
So in Michigan, Trump's lead would shrink from 10% to 8%, while his lead in Georgia would increase by 3%. For the record, this poll has other third-party candidates like Cornel West factored into the equation, likely taking away 6% of the vote for Biden. So if perchance he drops out of the election, that 6% would go towards Biden and narrow the lead of Trump to a percentage that falls within a riggable amount by the Democrat Party. So do you guys think that, I'm not going to really ask you guys because you guys already voiced your opinion about this, but Colby, do you think, is Kennedy controlled opposition played by the Democratic Party?
All right, so I don't think that RFK Jr. is really controlled by the Democratic Party. There's a slight possibility, but overall, I don't think he would. And I also don't think that he would have any chance running up against Trump or Biden. I mean, he's an outright independent. Could be better, could be worse, but he's just not really something that most people are looking for. So that's what I think.
So if Republicans want to win in 2024, we need to rally behind Trump and not allow a third-party candidate to pull too many votes away from him. If we don't rally behind Trump and a third-party candidate succeeds at pulling 20% from of the votes around the country, we will see Biden in the Oval Office once again for the next 4 years. This is going to sound really weird coming from a conservative, but we need Cornel West to stay in the race, because in the key swing states, he's taking away, on average, 6% of the votes from Joe Biden and will benefit Trump in the long run and allow him to win by a larger margin than if it was just Trump versus Biden or Trump versus Biden versus RFK. If he withdraws from the race and RFK is still pulling at his current levels, we're going to see a much tighter race in 2024. On to our next scenario, we will look at yet another likely situation where Biden backs out of the race in 2024 and another candidate runs under the Democrat Party. This would occur if the Dems decide he's not electable, or if, his family comes together and comes to the conclusion that he needs to take a step away from politics and, be a father or a grandfather and some other excuse not to run in 2024. I digress. Whether it is whether it's that or if he passes away, it's a very real possibility that he isn't the presidential nominee in 2024. Here's a current poll regarding the 2024 Democratic primary if Biden is out of the picture. Michelle Obama, 19%. That's a 9% increase since November. Kamala Harris is polling at 18%. That's 8 less points than in November. Bernie Sanders, he's polling at 12%. That's a 2% increase since November. Hillary Clinton, 7%. That's a 3% drop since November, but that's still she's pretty close to the top. Newsom, 9%, despite coming out and saying, I will not run for president in 2024. Elizabeth Warren, polling at 6%. That's the same as it was in November. That's still a pretty decisive percentage. Pete Buttigieg, he's at 5%. You may be rather shocked to hear that
Michelle
Obama was polling at such a high percentage and continuing to surge since November, but quite a few election strategists have been talking about this for quite a while now. The first time I could remember hearing this was from a relatively big-name conservative at the Turning Point Action Summit in mid-July 2023 by Roger Stone. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
Now, as a veteran of many years in American politics, I'm going to tell you something somewhat shocking. Joe Biden will not be the nominee of the Democratic Party in 2024. Kamala Harris will briefly become president, but the only way in their party they can replace a woman of color is with another woman of color. And yes, you heard it here first. The Democratic nominee for president will be Michelle Obama. They have already rigged their primaries. The reason that they have canceled the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary is to put South Carolina, a state where a majority of the Democratic primaries or primary voters are African Americans, and they will allow Gavin Newsom to purchase the vice presidential nomination, but the Obamas will hold him up for $600 or $800 million to do so. You heard it here first. When Steve Bannon says it in 3 weeks, remember I said it first.
What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Michelle Obama, listen, I'm sure it might be pretty popular with some Democrats, but I don't see them running her. I just don't see them doing it. It just doesn't, it seems a bit outlandish to me. I mean, we did have Hillary Clinton running in 2016, and that was the spouse of a former president. So it has happened before, and it could happen again. I just don't think it's very likely. That's my thought.
So who else would you see as a possible 2024 Democrat nominee?
Well, Gavin Newsom, he's a slithery snake, and he might try and throw his hat in the ring, I think.
Even though he already came out and said that he's not running in 2024, you think that he'll still go ahead and, just like a Democrat, lie to the face of
right.
possible.
I could totally see it happening, though, because, Gavin Newsom, he that totally seems like something he would do, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts on the guy. But, what do you guys think?
So I still think Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, but if he should back out, or if God forbid he should pass away, I agree with John here. I think Gavin Newsom is going to run, especially should he, God forbid, pass away. Gavin Newsom would kind of pull that really just negates my former statement that I will not run for president in 2024. So I think he'd run, and he's been preparing for a presidential run. He's been stepping up his publicity, and like John said, the man, he's a slippery man. He's slick, and you want to like him, even though he's kind of not a very good guy. But I still think the most likely possibility is a Biden versus Trump rematch. Incumbents almost always win their primary unless they step down. So I really have no doubt that Biden is going to win his primary.
But hypothetically, what if, God forbid, he passes away or he steps down? So you do believe, like, 110%, okay, if that were the situation, we're going to go ahead and see Gavin Newsom from California run for president.
Yeah,
Do you see any other possibility, or is he, like, first and foremost, like, the number one person you see for the Democratic nomination?
I think it's Gavin Newsom. He's certainly one of the most popular names in the Democratic Party right now. He's the governor of California, which California may be like a Democratic stronghold. So yeah, it's the most populous state in the nation. It has a GDP higher than a lot of countries. So the governor of California has a lot of influence, and I mean, I really think, like, Joe Biden is 80, so there's a real chance that he could be rendered, like, completely incapacitated, or he could pass away, just because of how old he is. And obviously, like, when I say God forbid, like, I really do mean that. I don't wish any ill on the man, but I really do think Gavin Newsom would run. Like, sure, maybe, there's a chance it could be Michelle Obama, or Hillary Clinton would run again. But I think Gavin Newsom, he's the new man in town. He's certainly younger than Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
He's certainly younger than Hillary Clinton. I'm not sure about Michelle Obama, and I would wager he's certainly the most popular Democratic governor. I mean, can any of you tell me who's the governor of New York? I mean,
I'm sorry.
The mayor of New York is a more well-known Democrat than the governor.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But I digress.
All right, so I think Obama's boyfriend Michael. I think he has a really good chance. After hearing what Roger Stone and Zach said, I think Michael has a really good chance at being the nominee for 2024 for the Democratic Party if something were to happen to Joe Biden. Do I think something will happen to Joe Biden? Maybe, maybe not. He's really old. We'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, I think Michael will have a really good shot if that were to happen.
Finally, we come down to the least likely possibility, but still a possibility. That, of course, is if neither Trump or Biden are the nominee in 2024. We already stated that it's a very possible situation that Biden is not the nominee in 2024, but we haven't entertained the possibility that Trump could potentially not be the nominee in 2024. The only way that I see this happening, of him not being the nominee, is if he becomes very, very ill, God forbid he passes away, or from an assassination attempt, which I also see as a possibility in 2024, unfortunately. He has quite a few enemies, and I'm scared that someone will be desperate and deranged enough that they will threaten the life of our beloved former president. This scenario is entirely hypothetical, as it would probably not happen, and because of this, there aren't really any polls regarding this, aside from the general polls. In a poll conducted by the Wall Street Journal, as I said earlier, under a general Republican versus Democrat poll, Republicans are up 5 points in a 46% to 41% poll. So if DeSantis, Haley, Vivek, or out of some possibility, Krispy Kreme is the nominee, the possibilities are limitless. But more than likely it'd be DeSantis or Haley who walk away with the Republican nomination. And the Democrat-wise, we already talked about this. It could be Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders. Like, so many possibilities in the Democrat Party. Not so much in the Republican Party, but Democrat-wise, it could go any possible direction. Pete Buttigieg, for goodness sakes. He's on there. He has 5%. He's polling higher than half of the Republicans. So, guys, the question I have for you is, if Trump was out of the picture in 2024, who would you guys be voting for or prefer to be as the Republican nominee?
Who wants to go first? I guess I'll go first. I guess this is a tricky question because I kind of am in full support of Trump at this point because I think he's the most likely to beat Biden. But if I had to go for anyone else, it would almost certainly be Ron DeSantis, just because he has the best track record out of all of them. He did, I think, a really good job as president, or not, gaff. Ron DeSantis did a very good job as the governor of Florida, and I think he would do an even better job as president. But problem is he has a very below average personality. So if he has no chance against Trump in the race to get the nomination, but I do think he would have a good chance of beating whatever other Democrat they decide to put in place, if and only if he's able to get his whole entire campaign back on track and kind of figure out a good strategy there. And that's DeSantis is who if I had to choose anyone other than Trump, it would be DeSantis. Nikki Haley, I don't see that happening. She's a rhino. She's a soccer mom. I don't think anyone genuinely wants her to be president. They just are looking for someone other than Trump or Biden, and so they're like, oh yeah, I'll vote for Nikki Haley. Chris Christie. Oh gosh, we're not even gonna go there.
Chris Krispy Kreme, we don't want you in the Oval Office, buddy.
Yeah, we're not even gonna entertain.
I'm holding out for the croissants.
But yeah, my biggest concern with Ron DeSantis is, while he did great things for Florida, he's not going to be the same person in the Oval Office, because he had to essentially sell out to some really awful people in order to run in 2024. So the person that we see down in Florida will not be the person who's in the Oval Office. That's my biggest concern, because you have to shill for donors, because you need money in order to run for a presidency. No money, no presidency.
I still think I'm going to agree with John, though. If it came down to Trump being out of the picture for whatever reason, my first choice would be Ron DeSantis. So I don't agree with John. I don't think Nikki Haley is a rhino, but she's not. She's certainly a Republican, but she's establishment. You might call her the old guard. She's a neocon. But she's certainly a Republican, but more moderate than Ron DeSantis. Same thing with Chris Christie. He's establishment. He's very unpopular just because of his stance he's taken on Trump, because Trump has a very devoted base. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he tries too hard to be like Trump, and he doesn't pull it off. He comes off as kind of an arrogant jerk, if I can say that. I've watched some of the debates, and every little jab he pulls is always booed, and he just comes off insufferable.
That helps out in the polls, though. He's making moments in those in the debates, and people love it. People are eating it up all over social media. Those boomers, there's many of them are seething, while a bunch of Gen Zs are like, yeah, this is pretty epic. I love seeing this. He's going against the status quo. He's doing as he's saying.
Yeah, that is who he's pulling the most well with is Gen Z voters, but there's still Gen Z voters still make up a smaller Gen Z voters still make up a small enough portion of the population that they're not the majority. So I still think I'd like to see Ron DeSantis. He's a tough guy. He's tough on LGBTQism. We've seen him be able to fight this stuff in Florida. We've seen him be able to fight Disney. The only concern again is that both of them mentioned that he's not charismatic at all. He's a little awkward. He has that kind of forced smile. And I think in a match against, say, Gavin Newsom, who is very charismatic, he has that really slick smile that just screams trust me, I'm a great guy. He'd be hard pressed to win.
Yeah, even though I gave DeSantis a lot of flack, he would definitely be my second choice president because he's quite a bit like Trump. He's the type of person that I eventually wouldn't mind seeing in the Oval Office once Trump is out of the picture, because he is on the debate stage. He is one of the best candidates up there.
Yeah.
He can go ahead and poll, and he's not a neocon like Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
He's, as I said, he's like Trump, but Trump light, but still kind of more conservative. Colby, what are your thoughts?
I would say that I would like to see either Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy in the Oval Office if Trump was out of the picture. Vivek has he's very conservative. I mean, he's almost like Trump in a sense, except he's like not polling as well. Or Ron DeSantis. I wouldn't have any problem with either one. I'd probably go with Vivek just because he's closer to Trump than I would say Ron DeSantis.
As time goes on and we get closer to the election season, we'll go ahead and cover each of the primaries in depth and continue to give our educated inputs for what it's worth on how we think the election will turn out and pan out. So if you guys don't want to miss any new episodes and uploads, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads. And have a happy New Year's, guys. And as always, God bless.
God bless.
God bless. And have a Merry Christmas.